I'm looking forward to this interview with Dr. Joan Schumann, who is the Director of Professional Learning and Instruction at the International School of Beijing. And they are a couple fun things to know about the school before we dig in is International School of Beijing is one of our partner schools for student-centered coaching. And we met their team through a course at the University of Wisconsin-Madison because they had decided to implement student-centered coaching and wanted to get some shared learning. And Joan and I met there and have been collaborating ever since. And it's been such an interesting year to do that work. And so we just thought we could spotlight how they're approaching coaching, what their journey has been. And I think our first question, probably from lots of folks out there, is just what your coaches' positions look like. How are they organized? How many do you have? How do they look across divisions? If you could just tell us a little bit about that first.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Diane.
Yeah.
So we are in our third year of having instructional coaching here at ISB. And this is also my first year here, but I'm up to speed on what happened prior to my arrival. So in the first year, they started with one coach in the elementary school. So they really piloted it down there. And then it grew to two coaches in the elementary school, again, because it was so successful. And this was going to be the first year where they really ramped up. And my understanding is that there wasn't a set, clear model for coaching actually in the first year. And they spent time as a leadership team involving coaches, curriculum coordinators, et cetera, exploring various models for instructional coaching and selected student-centered coaching after spending a year sort of inquiring about various models. That's when they also came forward with a proposal to secure more coaches on staff. So this year, again, was intended to be our big rollout year. And we'll talk more about what it's looked like this year. But right now on the team, we have 6 coaches. We have 2 in the elementary, and we have 3 in the secondary, one that's a little bit more focused on science, one that's a little bit more focused on math, and one that's a little bit more focused on literacy for both middle school and high school. So they go across the secondary school. And then our 6th coach is a K-12 Chinese coach dedicated specifically for the Chinese department. And most of those coaches are full-time. However, 2 do teach part-time. So they're almost on just kind of a split contract, if you will. So they teach a couple classes in the secondary, our math science folks. And then they have coaching as a 0.5, 0.6 kind of FTE.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. You have a lot of amazing resources. And I happen to know a great team of super smart coaches. And given the year, we wanted to ramp up this year, but we will ramp up next year. That is it for sure. What have been the structures or the ways they've approached their work this year? What are the ways that you've been organizing, supporting them through the different ways they could be coaching, even in a year of COVID?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, Diane. But I guess when I think back to the start of the year, of the school year, we had hoped originally that we really could, and we weren't sure what the year would present. A lot of people were coming back to China, and China schools actually were up and running from the start of the year in person. But we weren't quite sure to what extent the staff would have capacity to engage with us, especially since we were sort of on edge about closing at all times. So we've definitely carried a flexible mindset coming into the year. But the things that we have been able to accomplish and focus on, again, because we wanted a flexible model and we didn't want to lock people into full cycles when, again, they're sort of taking it day by day, week by week, not knowing if the school was going to close down. So we decided to develop 4 informal coaching structures. Well, one of which actually was a full cycle. So I suppose 3 other coaching structures that we could coach into and still start to establish the identity of coaches at ISB. And the identity as thought partners for teachers, but make it more flexible. So the first was preparing to teach the unit. We focused on that, especially kind of coinciding and working collaboratively with our curriculum coordinators who also work with teams on that piece. And the second was lesson planning. So just, hey, would you like to plan out that lesson together? Again, serving as a thought partner through the planning of a lesson. and then also focusing on mini cycles. And working with you has been wonderful because we could just sort of talk about what that looks like. And sometimes, a lot of times actually, it would, teachers would be so happy with sort of the mini cycle, just sort of that planning, teaching, and reflecting together conversation, that they would carry that on. So sometimes it ended up being a couple of mini cycles looped together. We still weren't to the full cycle piece, but it was really fun for both the staff and the coaches to get some of that work in, and again, start establishing the identity and presence of coaches on campus.
I love that word, identity. It really does speak to not only the power of the position, but that the need for coaches to have a clear identity and a clear sense of who they are and how they can contribute to your school. And everybody in a school wants to have that feeling of place. Where do I fit in? And you've been doing, well, we've together, you've been leading this, but I've been helping, I hope, with really some systems level work too, that gets at the identity of the coach, the role of the coach, how all of these structures can be used, how to set coaches up for success. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that systems level work?
Yes. And I suppose I'll also share then too, sort of what evolved over the course of the years. So essentially, we were on campus and we were starting to really engage. We were even doing some full cycles back in semester 1. And then with sort of the carryover of kids being stuck outside of China and being online, a lot of us were pulled into some teaching roles that needed to be filled on campus. And so, we've really been engaging in some shifts in job descriptions in semester 2, which again limited our ability to engage in those 4 structures, but we're still going strong. And we also decided as a team that this would be a good time for us to work after school, before school, on the systems level pieces, so that we're in an even better position next year. So some of the structures that we're looking at, that we've been developing and working on, are things like, okay, what are our collaborative structures? So what kinds of meetings are coaches involved in? Mapping that out so that there's a clear purpose, who's involved in which kinds of meetings, what are the protocols that are used, so that again, new coaches coming in, and as school leaders, we're all on the same page about what kinds of meetings coaches are engaged in. We've been mapping out a professional growth process and evaluation process for coaches. So that's one that we're working on right now. We've also mapped out kind of what does a coaching cycle like notation look like, documentation. I think we're calling it our coaching cycle template. And so what does that look like, and what should coaches be documenting, and what is fine to be shared with principals, not be shared with principals. So we're just getting all of those systems level pieces. The one I'm looking forward to the most is coming up at the end of the year, and that's our launching plan for coaching next year. Again, we're calling it our relaunch plan, because we just want to really have a nice, strong start to the school year next year. And so we're spending our time this year mapping that out as well.
Yeah. And you hired a few coaches this year too. So they're being brought into a system that's designed for success, which I love a mind that thinks systems level, because it's like I think everything lives and dies on that. And it can be so loosey-goosey. We go to a lot of international schools where there's no system in place. It's just that we hired some coaches and we send them to a conference, and that's it. That's all they get. And here you're thinking so deliberately about who's in what meeting, how are the meetings organized, what's the principal's role. Do you want to tell us a little about that? Because a big piece of this has also been working with the admin team.
Yes. So I think one thing that I've learned through actually my conversations with you, Diane, and I suppose it is how my role specifically has been designed, such that I help lead the coaching team, but then I also have in my job description looking at aspects of instructional leadership. And so one of the biggest insights that I've gained through our conversations is just the importance of actually building capacity among the instructional leadership team alongside, parallel to the coaching team, because coaches actually can't do their work well unless they have strong instructional leaders next to them that are also in classrooms. So just as an example, like, some people might think that, hey, this is great, I've got coaches to get into classrooms because now I'll know, what's going on in the classrooms and they can tell me. Maybe if you're a principal or an AP, but that's not the best way to think about this. In fact, you really can't think about it that way, because if, for example, there is a teacher that really needs more support, it shouldn't be put on that coach to sort of convey that up to leadership. Leadership has their own responsibility as an instructional leader to get into classrooms, and how and in what ways they do that in really productive, meaningful ways that support the learning of students is just as important to sort of map out as you do alongside your coaching program. I hope that kind of speaks to your question there.
Yeah. I think we can so easily put coaches in the supervision lane and not even know we're doing it. And then we're wondering why teachers don't want to participate in coaching. It's because the coach isn't a coach anymore. The coach is now a mysterious supervisor that is feeding information, and you're just being super careful. That has to happen. Supervision has to happen, obviously, in a school, but not through the coach. And we all know, we read it everywhere we read about coaching, that coaching isn't about evaluation, but it can happen fast. You can slip into that place before you even realize you did. And that can definitely impact the perception of coaching among teachers. So that work you're doing with the instructional leaders is huge. So you kind of have a vision then, just to close up, you have a vision for next year, a relaunch, like really saying we're going to, a lot of the barriers hopefully won't be there anymore. What do you, what is that vision? Anything else you can add just about what you're most looking forward to when it comes to launching, what you're excited about, what you're hearing from the coaches themselves?
I think, well, number one, they're ready to get back to being full-time coaches. Some of them still are, but again, some of us, like I said, have some teaching responsibilities, including myself. We're all just on the ground, which is fine because that's just what the school needs right now. But I think number one, they are excited to kind of have that full-time, and that full-time role is so important because they have to have the capacity to allow for teacher choice of when they coach. And right now it's hard when you say, even our folks on a 0.4 or 0.6 contract, it's difficult because that teacher might say, oh, I really need help with this class. Like, oh, well, I can't because I teach during that time. I can only help you during these classes.
During my schedule.
So it kind of defeats the purpose of coaching being, really focused on and being driven and led by the teachers and the students. Where's the student need and student learning needs? So that's one thing we're looking forward to. But I think, the staff are going to have greater capacity to take on coaching. Like I said, at the start of last year, there was so much more unknown, and our staff were just taking it day by day, week by week. Are we here? Are we going to go back online? I need to be ready for anything. They didn't have the mental capacity to really engage with coaching as much. I mean, that said, we've had some great staff we've worked with, but on the whole, overall, big picture view is that they will have much greater capacity next year, and to also want to learn about it. Because we have had some successes this year with some staff, word's gotten out that it's pretty cool to work with a coach, and it's fun, and it's a great way to grow and learn. And so it's been kind of cool that it's a little bit more grassroots, but the vision is for next year that, we can have, for example, a panel discussion where we have different teachers that we've worked with, sit on a panel and have the staff ask them questions. What was it like? How does it work?
I love that idea.
Alongside our coach and principals, and they can just really dive into the conversation so that we have greater clarity and consensus school-wide on what is coaching, why is it important, how does it work.
Yeah, that's such a great vision. And if you want to ever reach out to Joan, and the folks at International School Beijing, we can put you in touch with them. And you guys being international school partners means that you're willing to share what you're learning with others. So don't hesitate to, we love networking and making those connections. So thanks, Joan, for joining us and sharing your learning. And what a great conversation.
Okay. Yep. Reach out anytime. And thanks so much for your ongoing support, Diane.